All right, welcome in. It should be halftime of that Cincinnati game against Baltimore. There were 12 seconds left, and I assumed there'd just be a squib kick. I guess yesterday we thought that it'd be halftime too, and then the 49ers committed a personal foul penalty on Jimmy Ward, and Seattle got one more kick. So you can go ahead and let me know in the chat section if it's not halftime and if something crazy happens, but I figured I'd give you all a few more minutes of this show because I'm sure that people like hearing about 49ers and Seahawks and 49ers versus either Tampa Bay or the Dallas Cowboys than they do watching that game up in the AFC North between Cincinnati and Baltimore. Should be a good second half, though. AFC North is a different breed of football. But today we're going to talk about the 49ers defense in this show, kind of a halftime show for the game going on right now on NBC, because I wrote about the 49ers defense yesterday. Their highest graded defensive player by PFF against the Seattle Seahawks was Charles Omenihu. And he had a game-changing sack that absolutely fueled the 49ers. The way that I talked about it with Dre Greenlaw, I was like, that was like pouring gas on the fire for the defense. The defense just took off, and really the whole team just took off, really, at that point. Although the offense did score a touchdown coming out of halftime before then. And on that touchdown drive is when Jonathan Abram was yanking at Deebo Samuel's leg. Dirty play. 49ers didn't like it. Kyle Shanahan was scared for a few minutes that Deebo Samuel was hurt. He obviously wasn't hurt. And then it seemed that he was on good terms with Jonathan Abram after the game because they actually did a jersey swap, those two players. Crazy enough. But as soon as the 49ers scored, because they were down entering halftime, right? They were down by a point, 17-16. They scored to make it 23-17. And then the Seattle Seahawks drove down the field. A 12-play drive that took them all the way to the 49ers 14-yard line. Then an illegal man downfield penalty pushed them back to the 19, and it was third down and 14 from the 19-yard line when Charles Omenihu delivered the strip sack that Nick Bosa recovered and absolutely turned around the game. So when we're talking about what's going right and what's going wrong for the 49ers defense, Charles Omenihu is definitely something that's going right. A career high 2 sacks yesterday, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we get into our different subsections here. But if you want to check out the article, I've copied and pasted the link, and I'm going to toss it into the comment section for all of you right now. There you go. Charles Omenihu's game-changing sack fueled the 49ers' roaring defensive line. So that's in the chat section for all of you right now. And let's start going through this because the 49ers do have some defensive issues to fix, as was obvious in the first half. I think the one at the top of everybody's mind is the 49ers run defense. Seattle had 104 yards on the ground, 25 carries. Most of that damage came in the first half. And everybody was saying, well, what's wrong with the run defense? Because the 49ers run defense entered that game as the number one run defense in the league. And they had actually snuffed out Seattle twice in week 2 and then week 15 as well. So what happened here? The 49ers saw a different version of Kenneth Walker, K9, Seattle rookie running back in this game than they had seen earlier in the season. The way Nick Bosa described it is Walker was more patient of a runner than he was before. So you have to give the Seattle Seahawks coaching staff credit. They noticed that the 49ers defensive line might be speed rushing a little too much, kind of rushing like chickens with their head chopped off. And they realized that patience to hit cutback lanes might be what it would take to get the 49ers off balance coming the other way, right? And that's exactly what was the case in the first half. Patient running from Kenneth Walker and then inverted play calls from the Seattle Seahawks. So the way that Dre Greenlaw explained it to me was that a lot of the plays the 49ers thought would go to one side instead went to the flex side. They went to his side one time on the touchdown for Kenneth Walker, and Greenlaw got beaten around the edge. So the Seahawks threw a lot at the 49ers. They inverted tendency, and they also, they inverted tendency as far as which way plays went on the ground. And they also inverted tendency based on patience, right? Kenneth Walker wasn't known as that patient of a runner. He's really fast. He was known to hit the hole hard, but he decided to scale it back a little bit. And the 49ers were thrown off by that in the first half. So to fix that in the second half, the 49ers Bosa said this, they decided they had to be way more physical at the point of attack. They couldn't just be a speed rushing team. They had to really plow Seattle offensive linemen backward off the ball. Because what happens then is you really destroy the foundation of the house, right? Whenever you're blocking up front, you're trying to build pillars of a house so that the running back has room to operate. You have holes to squeak through. But if you damage the foundation, make it cave in on itself, then those cutback lanes won't be there. So the 49ers got way more physical in the second half in their effort to stop the run, and it worked because most of the Seattle rushing production happened in the first half. So that was the fix, and that's probably something that the 49ers are going to have to focus on fixing again moving forward, because I think that, within the game, they made the adjustment against the Seattle Seahawks. But whoever they play next, and it's either going to be Dallas or Tampa Bay next Sunday, those teams can also run the football, and those teams will also try to be patient, and those teams will also try to exploit the same thing. So the 49ers need to make sure that they have made a permanent correction, and sometimes that takes some work moving forward. Now, how about the pass defense? Because there was some concern about that. Obviously, DK Metcalf had 10 catches for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a lot. That's a big game for a star receiver. So it's natural to question whether or not the 49ers might need to tweak some things. I thought there was a little bit of leaky yardage, especially in the first half. I thought there were, moving on in the second half before Charles Omenihu made his big strip sack, Tyler Lockett picked up a first down where I thought the 49ers just did a sloppy job picking him up out of the trips formation on the left side. And, there was no defender there on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. You can't let Tyler Lockett get a free 7 or 8 yards. But this is also stuff that the 49ers tightened up a little bit later. The great example was Deommodore Lenoir's interception. He ran the route for Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Lockett's one of the best route runners in the game. So the 49ers absolutely adjusted in the secondary. And that brings me to the good news. I would be extremely encouraged about the 49ers cornerback play moving forward. Deommodore Lenoir played his best career game. I mean, he ran a route for Tyler Lockett. That says enough, right? But 20.8 rating for Geno Smith when throwing into Lenoir's coverage. He only gave up 2 catches, 16 yards. Most of the damage yesterday for the Seattle Seahawks and DK Metcalf came against Charvarius Ward. But Charvarius Ward has a track record. It's like Nick Bosa yesterday. Nick Bosa didn't have any pressures yesterday. Are you worried about Nick Bosa not having any pressures moving forward the rest of the offseason? No, of course not. The average is that Nick Bosa gets a lot of pressures every game. It is an outlier when he doesn't get pressures. Well, the same thing. The average is that Charvarius Ward is good and performs well at cornerback. The outlier is that he gave up a 50-yard touchdown pass to DK Metcalf. I don't think that's anything to worry about if you're the 49ers. Without that touchdown, if you subtract that 50-yard play, Ward gave up 4 catches for 38 yards. Same exact line, essentially, as he gave up the Week 15 game against DK Metcalf when he totally frustrated him. I think he gave up 5 catches for 33 yards and maybe even 4 for 33. So it's that one play that, yes, it made it an off game for Charvarius Ward, but that is not predictive of future bad games for Charvarius Ward. We already have a track record here, right? Barry Bonds strikes out once. You don't expect him to strike out the next 4 times he's up, right? Barry Bonds in his prime would still have bad at-bats, but you would look at the average over a longer period of time to predict what you're going to get next. I think it would be a lot bigger issue for the 49ers if it was Deommodore Lenoir who struggled at cornerback and not Charvarius Ward, because Deommodore Lenoir is already a question mark coming into the game. And there would be little hope that the 49ers would see that turn around moving forward. But it was Lenoir who excelled, and it's Ward who you can expect to raise back up to where he should be moving forward. That being said, the secondary, there's more good news there. Talanoa Hufanga got so much criticism after the Raiders game because, they were saying his eyes were stuck in the backfield on some of those play action plays and, got called out after by D'Amico Ryans in his press conference. Has also earned first team All-Pro status since then, alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick. And now Talanoa Hufanga is absolutely balling out. I thought that he was really good in coverage yesterday. I thought there was one play where he shied away a little bit from contact and it turned into a first down for Seattle. I forgot if it was Metcalf or if it was Tyler Lockett, but maybe Hufanga could have done a little bit better there. But you know how the rules are now for safeties, trying to make people pay for contact on those slant patterns, anything coming over the middle. That can easily turn into a 15-yard penalty. So, I don't judge that all too harshly. I think that Hufanga was all around solid for the 49ers. And I think their secondary definitely is the strongest secondary right now that they've had in the Kyle Shanahan era. I mean, even stronger than 2019, because in 2019 you had Sherman, played a good year, but opposite Richard Sherman, remember they had a bench Akello Witherspoon. Then they went to Emmanuel Mosley early in his 49ers career to finish out the playoffs that year. The safeties were what? Jaquiski Tart and Jimmy Ward. Now the safeties are an all-pro and Talanoa Hufanga and Tashawn Gibson, who made a huge play, 6 interceptions in the season and a huge play when he sniffed out the Geno Smith read option in the first quarter. So, I thought that the secondary for the 49ers really acquitted themselves well. And a lot of people are looking at this way too simplistically. 150-yard touchdown catch for DK Metcalf, one of the real special athletes in this game, should not be taken as some kind of, oh my God, Charvarius Ward is in trouble. Look at the big picture, please, because it gets exhausting when people nitpick one play here, one play there, especially when the 49ers won by 18 points yesterday. So this is what I wrote about. We have a couple more minutes left here in halftime. Charles Omenihu's game-changing sack fueled the 49ers' roaring defensive line. Nick Bosa is Nick Bosa. I don't care that he didn't have any pressures yesterday. He was getting double-teamed all afternoon. They didn't want to let Bosa beat them like he did in weeks 2 and week 8, week 15 with the rookie offensive tackles, Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. So they put a lot of attention against Nick Bosa. You expect that. But when that happens, the 49ers need somebody else, preferably another edge rusher, to really step up. And that's exactly what Charles Omenihu did for this football team. 4.5 sacks in the regular season. That's a career high. That's not that great of a number, but he had 54 pressures, and that's much more predictive of future sacks. And that ranks number 20 amongst edge rushers. Charles Omenihu's 54 pressures. And the sacks did start rolling in, and they rolled in when they absolutely mattered yesterday. Keep in mind that Omenihu had a sack and a half last year working against Tyron Smith and the Dallas Cowboys. That's a good, strong left tackle, and Omenihu just kind of bowled him over. And then he had 2 sacks yesterday when Bosa was getting a lot of attention from Seattle. Absolutely huge for the 49ers moving forward, because I've said it a lot. This 49ers pass rush is not as good as the 2019 pass rush. It can't possibly be. You don't have Dee Ford in there. You don't have DeForest Buckner in there. You don't have DJ Jones in there. It's going to be really hard to match that pass rush in its prime, right? But if these guys pick and choose their spots, Bosa's better than he was in 2019. If Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, Drake Jackson pick their spots on the opposite edge, like Charles Omenihu did yesterday, these 49ers are going to be really damn good on this pass rush. And it's going to be good enough to pair with a better secondary than 2019 and a better linebacking core than 2019, because Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shaair have all matured since then. They're all better football players since then. Greenlaw's turned into what I think is a Pro Bowl caliber player. He was obviously snubbed from that this year, but we all know how good Dre Greenlaw is if we watch him, right? And Fred Warner is obviously an all-pro. And that's where I'll finish this, because the 49ers defense, for all the concerns, you've got, some concern about the bookend of Bosa. Some people are concerned about Charvarius Ward. I told you why not to be. Some people are still probably concerned about Deommodore Lenoir. Some people are probably still concerned about Talanoa Hufanga. Okay, whatever. For all the potential concerns, linebacker is not a concern for the 49ers. They have the best core in the game with Warner, Greenlaw, and Al-Shaair, and that even goes into the depth with Oren Burks and Demetrius Flanagan-Foles. And with that crew of linebackers, they're going to have an advantage defensively over either offense that they face next week. It's either going to be Tampa Bay and Dallas. Remember when Tom Brady was talking about the 49ers defense, and he says, yeah, they got a good defensive line. They got a good secondary. They got good coaching, and they have great linebackers. He changed adjectives for the linebacking crew, and that's because these guys are fast, they're violent, they're physical. They're the intermediaries of the defense, right? You got the line and you got the secondary. The linebackers are right there in between both, and they're really, really damn good, and they're going to help the 49ers bridge the gap against Tampa. You've already seen it once this year, or against Dallas, which is, a little bit of a mistake-prone offense. Dallas has been turning the ball over this year, but it also is a two-way offense. They can run, they can pass. You've got to make sure that that intermediary position that is defending both the run and the pass, those linebackers are top-notch. But it's the linebackers, to me, that push the 49ers over the top in any matchup analysis of Tampa Bay or Dallas. And as long as those guys are clicking, that's going to have a carryover effect on both the front end and the back end in a positive way, right? So even if you have some questions about the 49ers, the reason their defense is still firing at an elite level is because the linebackers. So some concerns yesterday, but I hope that explains why and how maybe the 49ers are going to be trying to address them moving forward. Lombardi's Look Back coming up tonight after the game. We're going to do another one here, looking back at 49ers Seahawks. Hope you all enjoy the final 30 minutes of Bengals Ravens. Everybody take care. Oh, and sub to The Athletic. Check out that article. It's up there. It's up there for you. All right, everybody take care. We'll talk to you soon.